For more than 300 years, the Jesuits brought Catholicism to the end of the world. In 1767, King Carlos III of Spain ordered the immediate expulsion of the Society of Jesus, both from Spain, America, and all of the Spanish domains. According to the king, the Jesuits had become enormously rich in the missions and intervened in the politics against the interests of the crown. The Jesuits left behind iconic monolithic structures. One of the most important here in Panama is the ruins of this convent built in 1688. So originally this project started about 2014 when I first saw the building, and obviously, as you've seen in the pictures, it was complete ruins. There was really nothing here. But ironically, when I look at those pictures today, I don't remember it looking like that. It's not what I ever saw. I saw through that and saw the beauty and the opportunity to create something magical, something specific, something extraordinary. I was retired at that point. There was no reason for me to go back to work. And had it been just a regular box hotel, I wouldn't have come out of retirement. But, you know, I think hoteliers are sometimes a little bit like artists. You know, this was a palette that I'd never seen before in my life. And that was a unique moment for me, realizing we had the opportunity to create something very, very special. Along those roads were thousands of obstacles. From naysayers, other hoteliers saying there's an oversupply of hotels in Panama, and what are you doing, and you can't get good service here, and you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, to a certain degree they were correct. There was too many hotels at that point. But there's a difference here, and sometimes I think we should have a second word for hotels. Yes, we're in the hotel business, but we're not selling a box. Many hotels today, if you woke up inside the room in a new city, you wouldn't know what country you're in. We're not in that business. We're in the experience business, and yes, we're more expensive, but we're selling a premium. We're selling a destination. We're selling history. And I think that was the major obstacle for people that they couldn't understand. Why is it that we are putting so much passion and money into this project? Wow, that is a long conversation. As you can see from the beginning, we didn't really have a lot to work with. There's too many hotels in Panama. It's a horrible business. There's no money to be made. The staff are untrainable. And of course, they're looking at the ruins of La Compania de Jesus, of this convent, that also looks like garbage, quite frankly. It's ironic because that's not what I could see. What they were saying and what I was seeing were two different things. Obviously, we're looking at the same physical property, but what they see coal. I see a diamond. Honestly, I don't think I can recall a supporter. Everybody told me, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But sometimes I think when there's something in your heart, you can't stop it. You have to follow your heart. And it's risky, but that passion, that's what makes the difference. That's what sets you a project in the end apart from any other project. Yeah, why did I choose Panama? Actually, it's ironic. I think Panama chose me. I sold my business in Hong Kong in 2006 and finished working in 2008. I spent 3 years building a sailboat in Thailand. When the sailboat was done, I took my wife and kids on the boat for 3 years. But my wife didn't want to go because the kids were studying in Mandarin in Hong Kong. Ironically, a teacher full-time was cheaper than 2 kids at school in Hong Kong. So we hired a teacher, and for 3 years we sailed around the world. We went to 42 countries with a full-time teacher on board, teaching our kids in Mandarin. So after 3 years, their Mandarin and reading and writing in Chinese was excellent. Their Cantonese was good. Obviously, their English was perfect. So when we came through the Panama Canal, we were actually about to enter the Pacific Ocean to go back to Thailand, where we had already built a home, a retirement home on a golf course, picture perfect. And I said to my wife, I had no idea Panama was a real city. And it's a big secret that Panama has a skyline like Miami. The world doesn't know. And I said to her, what if we stop here for 2 years and let the kids learn Spanish? That's the reason I'm here. It was never to build a hotel. I had no intentions of ever working again. So we decided to stay here for 2 or 3 years. If the kids could speak Mandarin, Spanish, and English, they'd have the world. And I hated Panama. After 6 months, I hated the country. And it took me about another 6 months, and one morning I was having my morning shave, and I looked in the mirror and I said, you hate Panama? Or you hate the man in the mirror? And the reality was I hated the man in the mirror. I hadn't worked for 8 years. I was getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit of anxiety. And I came to Casco looking for a small project. The idea was 2 apartments and a shop. The kids learn Spanish, I renovate a little building, we jump on boat, head back to Asia. Well, it ended up being a city block and Hotel Compania.
There's an old expression, and particularly with historical restorations and adaptive reuse, that we're merely caretakers of history. In this case, it was very true, and it was an honor to participate in a global collaboration and a respect for history. To tie the historical styles together and create uniformity in the design across 3 very different architectural styles was one of the more interesting challenges for the project, and the topic of many design discussions with the owner. The owner's intense architectural research of all the buildings was thorough and compelling, particularly given the limited available information. This research provided us with the inspiration to create meaningful and relevant stylistic interior adaptations, while often inventing historical designs where information was absent.
I remember receiving an email from Chris back in November 2017. It intrigued me because it was not the typical developer chatter about building just another hotel. In fact, his message to me read as follows. This private sector project consists of strengthening the historical education and cultural relevance of the country of Panama, while offering continuous social protection and integration within a poverty-challenged area in the city. This project will become a landmark site in Panama, and will provide training and job placements to local residents in this area. And the landmark it has become. As an impact investor, IDB Invest is dedicated to backing projects that have significant development impact. We take great pride in supporting those that are focused on revitalizing and strengthening cultural sites. These projects, they not only preserve historical heritage, but they also drive sustainable development, and they set an example for responsible practices. Even in the midst of the pandemic, we knew we needed to support Hotel Compania and help it come to life. We were fortunate to be able to tag along with Chris, because it was through his resilience, his character, his can-do attitude, that this magnificent jewel opened its doors for all of us to enjoy. In fact, not only us, but hopefully for many generations to come. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier how we started with the 3 wings, and the building told me to make the wings different. As the design progressed in Bangkok and things came back and forth and renderings and so on, it was also a period, it took many years. Ultimately, historic approval. One of our buildings is a grade 1 UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is very delicate. So from start of planning stage to actually getting approval to build took 3.5 years. And it's a large amount of time, but I think it would be a similar time if you were in Europe or another country too. But when you have 3.5 years to think, this is the unusual part. Normally, if you take a project like this, you go into design stage, things get fixed very quickly, and then you go into production. But to have 3.5 years So during 3.5 years, I have time to research the building, to learn more. I knew very little about La Compania de Jesus. What does that mean? This hotel actually started as Hotel Washington because one of the wings in 1820 became Hotel Washington. And then we realized there was already another Hotel Washington in Colón, in Panama, and that was dangerous, being that our guests would get confused. The name then became Casa Octavo because we're on 8th Street and we have 88 rooms. But ultimately, when I realized La Compania de Jesus in English means the company of Jesus, when you start to understand the Jesuits' infiltration, perhaps a bad word, but in the times of New Spain, New Granada, the Catholic diocese that really pushed religion in the New World here was La Compania de Jesus. And it doesn't matter what old city you go to, Medellin, Cartagena, Cusco, the oldest church is always La Compania de Jesus. So yes, that La Compania de Jesus, people now understand what it means. Ironically, during this 3.5 years of building and design development and understanding history, I started doing research where I was going to other convents, where I was finding a diary of a priest who was incarcerated in a room behind me after the exile of the Jesuit. I learned as we unleashed new information, or I call it peeling the onion. Every time we pulled a layer away from this onion, I learned more. And I realized the awesome responsibility I have restoring a convent from 1688. If I don't let the building speak, if I don't let it tell its story, nobody will. And that responsibility is heavy. It's very heavy. And ironically, it sounds a little bit funny, but I feel like I'm the oracle. I am the oracle of this building. I transmit and allow it to tell its story. So ironically, this hotel didn't start off as a living museum. It started off more based on my Asia experience. We were going to build a colonial historic hotel, something like the Gullface Hotel in Sri Lanka, a colonial gem and our iconic piece of architecture. Not so noble today, but you could compare it to our other hotels, such as Raffles in Singapore, the Peninsula in Hong Kong. These are iconic colonial hotels. And that's where we started. And my interior designer in Bangkok had a very clear brief that that's what we were after. When he rendered the first room, and I received the rendering of the first room, it was exactly what I asked for, to the light switch, perfect. But I didn't like it, so I changed a few things. Or I asked him to change a few things, which he did. We changed that room 10 times, and I was still not happy, and my interior designer quit. And we were friends, and he said, "Chris, I can't work for you. You're not clear what you need." Ironically, at this point, we'd already purchased the property. Of coming out of retirement to go back to work, purchased a city block in an old town, a set of ruins, and I have no idea what I want to do anymore. It's a very depressing and a very scary moment in my life. So finally one day I stood on the street and I was looking at the buildings, and architecturally they spoke a very different language on the outside, and I was like, tell me what to do. I spoke to the buildings, and the building said to me, quit trying to make us the same. You know, most hotels, if we're in 3 wings, this hotel, 3 wings on the lobby would have the same floor tile, the same color scheme, etc., etc. It's one building. That's what we started with. The buildings, when they told me quit trying to make us the same, I realized actually they're specifically architecturally different. We need to honor that. We need to respect that. That's when this hotel changed into 3 different wings, the Spanish, the American, and the French wing. And finally we found our way. We were lost. I was lost in the jungles. But when I found that moment, that became the clarity. It became the history of Panama. We had colonial Spanish here, we had the colonial French, or the French period of trying to build a canal, and ultimately Americans came to finish it. Those are the 3 cycles of evolution of this country. And now I had the opportunity that was my palette. Finally, I knew what to do. Obviously, the biggest part of the restoration here was Calicanto, the field stone walls that we have around us. These were built in 1688, the ones behind me here in 1739. They're very The mortar is different. It depends which cook, which mason makes the mortar. We'd need to match the mortar in order for it to bind, so we'd have to send samples to Spain. Now in Panama, there's very few stonemasons left. The restoration of all of these stone walls was the biggest Calicanto restoration ever done in Panama. Almost 3 years. And about half the team came from Colombia, because there's more of this skill in Colombia than there is in Panama. Obviously, we trained Panamanians to do it. But that's one part of the restoration. Other parts were using overseas suppliers throughout the world. And I think this is where one of my benefits of my Asian experience came from. We imported about 60 40-foot containers from around the world, from different countries, and typically mostly in Asia, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, Java, Indonesia. And part of that was perhaps some of this could have been sourced more locally. Reality is, for me, I'm not Latino. I know more about Asia than I do in Latin America. So you tend to stick with what you know. So a lot of the beautiful mahogany wood carvings or the stone carvings you see, that was done in Java, Indonesia. And I think that's, at the end of the day, where it's actually made is maybe a little bit secondary to the putting it all together. Because when the visual package is the quality one would expect from this sort of product, it's sort of secondary where it's made. Had we tried to make it all here, I'm not sure we would have succeeded.
When I saw the project, basically, I fell in love. I mean, it was going back into history. It was like a tunnel, going back centuries of history, and we let the building to speak. It was very easy to make a new shoebox, but each stone, each floor speak by itself. So I think it was easier for us to put it together. After looking at the history of the place, 1739, 1688, 1904, so it was more like going back to school, start to study, to see what was going on those buildings, and to try to bring it back to life, And when you have such a beautiful piece, you just need to have the right pieces on. This is like a puzzle. When you have a puzzle, you start to move pieces around, and you discover that when everything matched, basically became a masterpiece.
It's authentic. This is real, and the people know it. And when we do tours of the hotel, people are proud to be here. And I've learned that history is not, people say to me, thank you for what you did for Panama. I'm like, interesting. Sometimes I say, I didn't do it for Panama, I did it for the building, and the building's Spanish. So did I do it for Spain? No, I didn't. I did it for history. And history belongs to all of us. And that's one of the most unique things that, if we go to see the pyramids in Egypt, we're proud of humanity. We might not be Egyptian, but that doesn't matter. History breaks all borders, and it's for all of us. We all own it. And that's what I see here. And the most heartwarming part of that is not that it's international, but it transcends age barriers too. From children, I give tours of the hotel to young children and explain pirate stories that happened here. Henry Morgan burning down Panama City, to adults. And everybody enjoys the history, and it transcends the age groups and the ethnicities. Isn't that a wonderful thing?
Food and beverage in hotels is often considered a necessity, but in many cases, it actually ends up being the heart and soul of the hotel, becoming a major financial driver, sometimes even more so than the hotel rooms. As an international chef, it has been an absolute pleasure and a real highlight of my career to be involved in this project. The objective was to cater to a wide spectrum of taste, moods, palates, and of course budgets. And having 5 restaurants and 2 bars allowed us to achieve exactly that, as we were able to create something special and unique for everyone. However, striking a balance of old and modern international flavors while respecting the integrity of the historical site was a fine balancing act to ensure that one element was overpowered by the other. Being able to help bring Asian flavors to Panama has brought me immense satisfaction, and watching its acceptance and enjoyment from diners has been truly heartwarming. This was always the goal and has clearly resulted in the hotel being regarded as a dining and entertaining hub, on top of being such an incredible hotel to stay at.
Prior to my private business, I owned 37 restaurants, bars, and clubs in Hong Kong. I had a food factory and a food import business, and we employed over 1,000 people. That business was built in 10 years minus 22 days when I sold it. Part of our success was putting a square peg in a square hole. Quite often restaurants are built because people have an emotional, I want to build this. That's not what we do. We try to give the people what they want. It's unusual in a hotel with 88 rooms. We have 5 restaurants and 2 bars. It's very unusual. In fact, we have more revenues in the hotel from food and beverage than we do from a hotel. That is extremely unusual. We live in a world today that many hotel owners actually don't want to run restaurants anymore. In fact, they'll lease out space in their hotel because it's less profitable and it's more moving parts. That's true, but that's my background. I'm a chef. My parents were chefs. This is what I've done all my life. So with 5 restaurants and 2 bars, we can attack different moods. When you go for dinner, you're in a mood for fine dining, casual dining, easy, less expensive, more expensive. There's different moods. And that's our job, is to try and cater to them all, or to different people for those different days. And it's very important to me that a hotel is a public house. We need people here. If you have a physical building with you have no soul. The people are the soul. And the restaurants that bring the people. 80% of our business here in the restaurants is not people staying in a hotel. It's very unusual. Most people don't even consider going to hotels as restaurants. That's more of the independent thing. We managed to break that mold, and it's very important to us. And I think it keeps this hotel front of mind and approachable to the people of Panama.
When you visit a place, a country, a destination, you like to know the icons of that place. When you go to Paris, you want to go to the Eiffel Tower. When you go to San Francisco, Golden Gate. If you go to New York, Times Square, and so on. So, when you came to Panama, number 1 destination is the Panama Canal. And our idea was to develop a new icon, not only in Panama, in the region. So that's why we became with La Compania. So most of our efforts are focused on people who likes new adventures, historical places. The reason why we are in Unbound collection is because those hotels are unique. We are only 34 hotels around the world. There's one in Paris, there's one in London, there's one in Japan, there's one in Spain. But each one of those hotels has to have a unique experience. With 5 restaurants, 3 bars, full service spa, beautiful patio, beautiful church next to us, 88 rooms, suites, flavors from 7 nationalities. Of course, we are a destination. So it is a matter just to maintain, to be present in the top of mind on the well travelers, on the CEOs, on all those people who likes to have a different experience. We have many people who likes to come for a meeting and then they come back with the family. People who decide to stop over in Panama because they were going somewhere else, South America, Central America, and they stay at least one night because they wanted to experience the hotel. And it's very satisfying when people tell you, thank you for saving the convent. Thank you for saving this building. And for us, it's like a mission accomplished. It's a mission accomplished since the beginning. We can tell about 9 years, maybe 9 years of paperwork or planning design, developing, pandemic, construction, and then putting together over 350 workers from different nationalities, from different specialties, from different expertise. The world traveler likes to be in a place away of home, but feeling in home. That's what it's about, La Compania.
I arrogantly or egotistically would say to them, not only am I going to open a hotel, I'm going to try and open the best historic landmark hotel in Central America. And of course, that's a big statement. I realize it's a very big statement. But I would argue, and I think this is a fair argument, that if Panama is the leading city of Central America, and Casco is the most historic, important part of the leading city, and this city block with a big internal square might be the most important block in Casco Viejo, we have the ingredients here to make the historic landmark hotel of Central America. Now we have the ingredients. Do we have the chef? Do we have the team to put that recipe together? And I think that became the objective of this project, that we knew, we were very cognizant of the importance of our property. We threw caution to the wind to a certain degree when it came to cost. You know, when things like the pandemic hit and we were midway through construction, there was a strong argument to convert this into apartments or to cut the budget. In the end, I disagreed to do any of those. We would follow it through to the completion line because we had an opportunity that's rare. There is only one La Compania de Jesus ruins in Panama. There's only one. It can never be duplicated, it can never be copied. And our job was to do it and do it right. And has it become a living museum? Has it become a piece of art? No. It was always a piece of art. We just needed to bring it back.